Hey, hey, hey. Happy Thursday. Come on in. Pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by, incredibly enough, the gaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. And more incredibly enough, all throughout this month, we are also sponsored by Roll for Combat. I'll talk a little bit more about our sponsor of the month in just a little bit. Welcome aboard, everybody. Tonight is Thursday, September 5th, 2024. This is live stream 1096. If you're not overly familiar with the show, let me point out, super casual around here. Just hanging out, talking about the latest in tabletop gaming news. And then I'll usually pontificate on a topic related to our hobby. And because the NFL season is kicking off tonight, I am going to be talking about some American football board games. So that will be tonight's topic. So stay tuned for that. Yes. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Also, because this is a live show, there is chat available. It's not on screen. It's one of the ways I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. And you must be a subscriber to the channel for at least 10 minutes before you can take part in chat. Yet another way I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. But if you want to say howdy, got a question, comment, by all means, chime in. I will do my best to respond. I'm going to take a wild stab that things are going to be kind of quiet in chat tonight with the NFL kickoff. I do have a bet in. Yes, I did bet on tonight's game. I like prop bets. So last night I mentioned I was thinking of taking the under, but then I noticed the under dropped by like 1.5, and I was like, I don't want to do that. So I took a prop bet on Derrick Henry's receiving yards, not rushing yards, receiving yards over 6.5 yards. So we'll see. We'll see if the Baltimore Ravens want to play around with their new toy a little more than you would expect. We'll see. We'll find out what happens there. All right, first out the gate tonight is our good friend of the show, the Madman. Keith Ulu is with us, as is Testy Trekkie and Chris Burkhart and Gleam One RX. I know it's John Mascola and W Forge are also jumping on into chat. And I think the lovely and talented Miss Sarah D is probably lurking in the shadows with her glittery banhammer. Yes, she is another of our chat moderators. So, hello, everybody. Welcome aboard. So tonight, we're going to be diving on into some football board games. And I'll be the first to admit, I don't own any. I used to own a lot. I don't anymore. Over the years, they have not survived moves around the country and things like that. Sorry to say. But I am pretty well versed in some of the classic football board games. I'll be talking about those. I'll also share some board games that I hear are pretty good, but I don't have any experience with. So that will be coming up. As I mentioned, all throughout the month of September, we are sponsored by Roll for Combat. That's right. They are in the midst of their highly successful Battle Zoo Bestiary Elemental Storm Kickstarter. Yes, it is a 250 plus page tome that brings hundreds of new monsters and monster slaying options to 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder 2nd edition. There are over 170 innovative and award winning elemental monsters. And those monsters will channel the power of 20 unique elements, including earth, wind, and fire. I've been wanting to say that when I've been doing this little, cell sheet info. Instead of saying air, earth, fire, and water, earth, wind, and fire. The band. Jeez. As well as new elements like music, space, and time. Your players will never know what's coming. But what does award-winning monsters actually mean? Each monster found within all of the Battlezoo bestiaries, including this one, were submitted as far as an open contest for new and aspiring monster designers. I don't know what makes you a veteran monster designer. Maybe if you have a monster published in one of the bestiaries, maybe. I don't know. Entries were judged in 2 rounds. First, all entries went through an open judging process where anyone could rank each monster based on a number of criteria. After that round was completed, the top monsters were selected, and then industry professionals scored the top entries on new criteria, producing copper, silver, gold, and platinum winners, as well as one grand prize winner, which was depicted on the cover. Not only did each winner get their monster depicted in this book, but each was also awarded a cash prize. Inside the book itself, next to each monster, you'll see each winner's name and medal rank. So yes, each monster in this book and other Battlezoo bestiaries are actually award-winning. Now you can reserve a copy of this hardcover that I am holding in my hands in the flavor of your choice for a $60 pledge. That's right, you can get it for 5e Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder 2nd edition. Or if you want to just grab the PDF, you can do so for a $30 pledge through October 8th. Expected delivery is next spring. And yes, as much as I would love to show you what is inside this book, I am sworn to secrecy by Stephen Glicker over at Roll for Combat. So sorry, I can't really share the inside of this book. In fact, I don't know. I could be in trouble because I just flashed you with the book there. Sweet. Very nice. Very nice. Roger Perdome and Michael Burrell are popping on into chat, as has the third of our chat moderators. Flaming Heron is here. And yes, I do notice that Sarah D is saying hello from the shadows. Yeah. All right. So let's jump on into the news, because we have been talking about the new fantasy, or I guess they're calling it a mythic cyberpunk role-playing game, Other Space, throughout the week. And let's talk about the third of the major releases, and it is the Action Matrix. It is out in PDF. I've got the skinny from Son of Oak Game Studio. Reference guide for limitless player actions in the mythic cyberpunk role-playing game. The action database is a 108-page supplement for the Other Space role-playing game with its open-ended tag-based rules. Tag, you're it. No, I mean like tags, like words. Otherscape allows you to simulate and resolve any imaginable action the players could want to take in a scene, from hacking a simple lock. Wouldn't that be picking the lock? Oh, I guess if it's an electronic lock, it would be hacking. To piloting drones, from brewing potions to summoning spirits, from driving a getaway car to shooting rockets at a giant spider tank. What is this, Wild Wild West? Ugh, what an awful movie. All actions of a mythic cyberpunk series can be resolved using the same rules and with a single roll, making way for the story you want to tell. The action database is a supplement to the core rules, offering an encyclopedic collection of suggestions for typical player actions and how the game's roles and effects can be used to resolve them. It can be used by players and MCs alike for inspiration for actions and consequences, or as a quick reference on how to resolve specific actions and situations during the game. Among the action categories covered in the book, combat actions, including attacks, tactical actions, support actions, and different types of defense. Cyberspace actions, including data manipulation, hacking, virtual reality shaping, and harnessing. Exploration and survival actions, including navigating terrain and hazards, scouting, sneaking, as well as treating injury and recovery. Mythos power actions include working with sources, spellcasting, summoning, transformation, communing with mythoi, and many other types of magic. Also, social interaction actions, almost like conjunction junction, including deception, persuasion, managing reputation, leadership, and manipulation, as well as a range of business transactions. Spycraft actions such as surveilling, shadowing, sneaking, and gathering information, as well as tech and gear actions, including building, upgrading, and repairing tech, operating devices, vehicles, and drones, and tampering with tech. You can currently pre-order the 108-page hardcover with PDF. I do believe you get the PDF when you place your pre-order. Right now, this is on sale. It's $24.95. Normally, it's going to carry an MSRP of $29.95. Or if you just want to grab the PDF, you can do so right now over at Drive-Thru RPG for $19.95. The physical book is supposed to ship out in November. In fact, just like all of the rest of the other releases in the Otherscape role-playing game line. It's pretty cool. As I had mentioned on the previous two shows, this looks really good. The artwork is really popping off the page from what I have seen. I wonder, although it is kind of powered by the Apocalypse, it's kind of a tweaked Apocalypse engine. So it's not, I don't think it's truly considered PBTA, but it does share a lot of DNA. Regardless, I'm kind of curious. Could this knock Shadowrun off of its fantasy cyberpunk perch? I'm curious. I am curious. Although it does take place, well, I guess the first setting book is Tokyo, whereas Shadowrun is mainly focused on Seattle. And it's a different vibe altogether, but still kind of curious. I am kind of curious about that. Semper Buffo and Danny Gable are with us in chat. Danny Gable's bringing up a pretty good football game. We'll get to those. We will talk about those in just a little bit. On to our next news piece. There is a new adventure which is released for the Rivers of London role-playing game. I've got the skinny on, the font of all evil. A gruesome murder. Thursday, 19th May, 2016. You've been called in to investigate a gruesome murder scene in Ealing, West London. The local police were so concerned by the odd nature of the victim's injuries that they called in the Folly to investigate. But how did the victim die? Why does their home look like a hoarder's nest? Most importantly, why would somebody want them dead? Can you crack this case? The Font of All Evil is an ideal alternate introductory case file, or it can be used as a follow-on scenario to the bookshop or going underground. Guidance is also provided on running investigators with violence for groups that would prefer not to focus on the more gruesome aspects. Because keep in mind, gore is not everyone's cup of tea. This 44-page softcover with PDF can be had for $14.99 by way of Drive-Thru RPG. That's right. This is a Chaosium release. This is not part of, like, they have the third-party content creation. This is from Chaosium, but it is being done POD by Drive-Thru RPG. If you just want the PDF, you can grab that for $7.49. So I have reached out to my friends over at Chaosium Inc. to ask if I can get a copy of this to review, because once again, fits right on into our spooky September, right? Right? We're going to talk a little more about that in a bit. And the other adventure that has come out, what was it? The Underground? I never had an opportunity to see that. So, Going Underground, I think it is. I have asked if I can check out a copy of that. I should also mention there is that adventure book coming for Call of Cthulhu that has 3 new adventures. It's arriving in stores, I think, 23rd-ish. We'll be taking a look at that soon enough. Yes, yes. Coco B is with us. Why does their home look like a hoarder's nest? Mostly unplayed role-playing games. We blame the gaming gang. There you go. It's all my fault. Tessie Trekkie says, City of Mist is powered by the apocalypse, made more complicated and needlessly painful. I reviewed it quite a while ago. I thought it was kind of cool. I liked it. I think I've talked about this a little bit before. I like the apocalypse engine. I think it is very difficult for game masters to wrap their heads around as opposed to players. I think it's easier as a player to play a Powered by the Apocalypse title, and it's a little more difficult for the game master to run it. So there is that. But I gotta say, City of Mist is a very, very well supported role-playing game. That is for certain. On to the next news piece. A new bundle of holding has arrived, and it features the liminal role-playing game from Modiphius Entertainment. Ah, yes, Beats of Rivers of London. I've got the deets on this deal. Adventurer. We've resurrected our November 2021 Liminal Bundle featuring Liminal, the tabletop role-playing game about guardians on the boundary between the modern-day United Kingdom and the hidden world. Designed by Paul Mitchener and distributed by Modiphius Entertainment, Liminal uncovers secret societies of magicians, a police division investigating Fortean crimes, fey courts, werewolf gangs, and haunted places where the walls between worlds grow thin. See what I mean about the kind of Rivers of London vibe? For just $9.95, you get all 3 titles in this revived offers Liminal Collection, which has a retail value of $40. You get these as DRM-free PDFs, including the complete Liminal Core Rulebook, plus its free quick start, the city source book, Pax Londinium, plus its free overflow supplement, The South Side, and newly added for this revival, the Liminal Casebook with 14 case notes, or scenarios, that range across the UK. Will mention, if you did purchase this back in 2021, you will get the casebook absolutely free. These savings will run through September 18th. I got to be honest, I don't think this ever really took off. It was, once again, it was a third-party game that Modiphius Entertainment was publishing. I'm not knocking it by any stretch of the imagination, and I'm sure the production quality is pretty good, pretty solid. The artwork always looked pretty nice. But you got Rivers of London, and this is just kind of feels like Rivers of London with the serial numbers kind of filed off. Don't know. Do not know. But hey, $10. Not even. A nickel less than $10 scores you essentially the 5 PDFs. So you might want to take a peek at that. Scheduled to land in stores in October is the Tales of the Valiant Game Masters Guide. And here's the scoop from my pals at Kobold Press. The Ultimate Game Masters Toolbox. Great storytellers make great stories. Why? Thank you. Thank you very much. The Game Master's Guide for the Tales of the Valiant role-playing game contains everything Game Masters need to build deep narratives, exciting combats, and compelling adventures. Learn what your players enjoy, customize your game to their play styles, and keep everyone engaged and enthusiastic. The reality is, that is really a key. Right? Adjust as a game master, adjust to your players. Don't make your players adjust to you. Unless your players are, terrible. Then you make them adjust. Start world building with plenty of tables, checklists, and creative prompts to craft a unique, fresh setting. Raise your exploration, social, and combat encounters up a notch with advanced tools and techniques for maximizing their potential. Homebrew original monsters, character options, and more, like the pros with the advice, best practices, and building block examples. Build your world, craft your adventure, run your game. You can pre-order the hardcover of the Game Master's Guide for Tales of the Valiant for an MSRP of $59.99. I believe it includes a discounted coupon for the PDF. I do not know what the discount might be. You can also reserve the PDF. No, the PDF is not out yet. For $34.99. This is the book that I am most interested in taking a peek from Tales of the Valiant. Now, granted, I did like the Monster Vault a lot. But then again, I happen to like Kobold Press's take on some of the classic monsters like kobolds. Funny enough, I like the kobolds from Kobold Press, but I like the kobold character designs from Pathfinder better. I like them having that kind of weird, like, newt look to them. I like that a lot. And I think out of the major fantasy role-playing games, I'm probably least thrilled with the Dungeons and Dragons take on kobolds. But this looks pretty good. And fingers crossed, my friends over at Kobold Press will send that along for us to get a much, much closer look at. Tessie Trekkie says, Liminal is an excellent little game that just never took off. I shared news about it when it came out. I did share some news pieces. Sadly, it just, didn't really go anyplace. All right. Final news piece. There is a third-party adventure for Dungeon Crawl Classics, which is available in print and PDF from Goodman Games, and it is from Sharktopus Games, but it's actually in print by way of Goodman Games. Here's a lowdown on Ziggurats of the Blood God. Do you dare explore the long-forgotten Ziggurat of the Blood God? Deep in the jungle, far from civilized lands, lies an ancient temple dedicated to a long-forgotten god. You'll come face to face with untold horrors, deadly traps, puzzles, and more. The reward, should you live to tell your tale and spend it, is riches beyond compare. I don't know. I can compare quite a lot, or words to that effect. Untold treasures that would make the kings of the realm look like pathetic, penniless paupers. This fourth level adventure was written for Dungeon Crawl Classics. it can be tweaked to other role-playing games as well. Inside, you'll find an in-depth background description of the adventure to help you incorporate the tale into your campaign. Lots of fun tables and charts filled with effects, both good and bad, for your players to roll on. Unique, scary monsters, scary kids, scary, to terrorize your player characters with. But it's not all hack and slash. There are also NPCs that will help should your player characters be smart enough to make friends with them. Players will need to be on their game and alert for the deadly traps sprinkled throughout the ziggurat. There's also cool, evocative art, player handouts for more immersive play, 6 adventure hooks to make it even easier to weave this adventure into your current campaign and draw your players in to their doom, or riches if they live. And much, much more inside. Do not miss this exciting adventure. What are you waiting for? An invite from the Blood God? You can grab the 35-page softcover with PDF over at Goodman Games for an MSRP of $12. You just want to grab the PDF. Maybe you don't want to pay shipping on a $12 book, which is probably going to be the cost of the book. You can grab the PDF over at Drive-Thru RPG for $10. Very nice. This looked kind of cool. And it is one of the new third-party print products over at Goodman Games. Michael Burrell says that the Game Master's Guide should be shipping soon for Tales of the Valiant because they were a backer on their Kickstarter. Just got their dice today from the Player's Guide and Monster Vault Kickstarter. Cthulhu says, set it on fire, you'd be smoking a ziggurat. Kabuki Kid is with us in chat. Double K's in the house. Good to see you once again. All right, so that is it for the news tonight. Kind of zipped down through that fairly quickly. Do want to mention, I don't usually talk about video games and stuff, but every once in a while, if there's something on Epic Games, because it's Thursday, it's when they drop their newest free game, or sometimes more than one. If it's something that really caught my eye, I like to tell you about it. So yes, the football season is kicking off here in the US, although tomorrow night they're playing in Brazil. If you have any interest in the other football, you know, the football that billions of people follow, that you actually use your foot or feet, I guess I should say, a lot. European football, right now, you can get Football Manager 2024 absolutely free over at the Epic Game Store. I can personally tell you that if you are a soccer fan and you like detailed simulations, if you want to be the coach, you will lose yourself in this game. Now, I have not had an opportunity to play the 2024 edition, but I just got it for free. There's also a shooter, I think. I think it's like a sniper game that is also part of the freebies. And I got to point out, Football Manager 2024 normally sells right now for $60. So you're getting a $60 PC game absolutely free. I think the sniper game is like a $30 game. So pretty nice. So I wanted to let you know about that. There you go. Kabuki Kid says, Sniper Ghost Warrior contracts. I can't tell you if it's any good. Kabuki Kid says, they know because they grabbed both of them already. So yes, epicgames.com, go on over there. I'm telling you right now, if you enjoy soccer, you will get lost in this game. Trust me, I have owned multiple editions over the years of Football Manager, and it is excellent. It really, really is. It can be frustrating when you're side is getting their butts kicked. But I tend to like to take teams from, I do like the Wrexham sort of thing, right? I like to take teams that are in the lowest of the English leagues and see if I can get them to, get promoted. I've never gone through the whole process of getting them promoted all the way up to the premiership, but I have gotten them promoted a couple of levels. So pretty nice, very cool. All right. Of course, I was also talking about Drive-Thru RPG just a few moments ago. Don't forget, the Gaming Gang, thus the Dispatch, is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you are going to visit Drive-Thru RPG or Storyteller's Vault, Dungeon Masters Guild, Wargame Vault, any of the One Bookshelf sites, please stop by thegaminggang.com. First, click on one of our banner ads. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get a small portion of that sale. And all those nickels, dimes, and quarters really do add up and help keep thegaminggang.com around. Also, if you like this video, if you like the video, if you dig the channel, if you find thegaminggang.com to be a valuable resource, hell, if you just like what we do, you can always stop on by paypal.me/thegaminggang to make a small donation. Hell, you can buy me a 2-liter bottle of soda. Quite wet. Yes. And there are some of you out there who stop by paypal.me/thegaminggang and make not small donations. So extra thanks to the Madman and Kevin King, Joshua Edwards, Agile Monk, and others. Thank you kindly. But I appreciate anyone who uses the banner ads and or stops over at paypal.me/thegaminggang. It is very, very much appreciated. Also, you can support the channel and the website just by visiting the website, commenting at the website, telling your friends about the channel, commenting on videos, making sure you give them a like. Don't cost you a dime. So you can help out that way too. All righty. So tonight I am going to be talking about some American football board games from the past and present. But first, I think it's time for a brief intermission.
Right this way, just step right in the center ring, our top attraction, you get your money's worth. Come see the dancing elephants, the biggest thing on wheels. Ah, the little boy's first circus, I wonder how it feels. With wonder does this magic land fill his whitened eyes. Look now, there the zebras, this show's a real surprise. The polar bears arrive on cue, on bikes they sally forth. They're mighty cool, but then it's true, they're from the frozen north. And now the clowns will stop the show with your most kind permission. A rocket blast so you will know it's time for intermission.
In the old mail car was fearless Fred, guarding a precious sack. When the bandits appeared from everywhere, our hero to attack. The fight was over, just like that, and up spoke fearless, sack in hand.
I'm awfully sorry we had this spat, but this is Toddy, the chocolate drink that's just grand. Yes, Toddy, the delicious chocolate drink in a can, does taste grand. Ice cold or steaming hot, Toddy hits the spot with everybody. During intermission, at our snack bar, or in your car, see how much better those hot dogs or that popcorn tastes with Toddy.
Delicious.
Next question. What do you think of Wilkins coffee?
It's wonderful, delicious.
You see, friends?
Now pay me the $10. Long ago in colonial Virginia, a tempting new recipe was created. They called this tasty dish Smithfield Barbecue. And today, that famous James River Smithfield Barbecue is still being prepared right there in Smithfield, Virginia. lovingly simmered in old-fashioned open kettles. The fame of James River brand Smithfield barbecue has spread over the entire world, so that today, happy folks in every land are enjoying that old Virginia dish, rich in tender meat, tangy with barbecue sauce. Getting hungry? Well, we wouldn't just tell you about Smithfield barbecue. Step up and enjoy one at our refreshment stand right now. When you bite into that luscious, lip-smacking Smithfield barbecue sandwich, you'll find out for yourself why James River brand Smithfield barbecue is a favorite everywhere.
Oh, yeah, that is not a Smithfield barbecue can you're going to see anytime soon. And Smithfield's is still around. I know that for a fact because we have Aldi up by us, and I pick up their ham steaks from time to time. And they're pretty good, and they are Smithfields. So... yeah, but that can is sort of like, is that sort of like step and fetch it on there? Well, what the hell is that? I swear to God, I think Quentin Tarantino used that as kind of the model for Django Unchained. Not for Django. I can't remember that one, what they consider it, Uncle Tom character. Yes. Good movie, though. I like that movie quite a lot. Kabuki Kid's curious, when did they stop making toddy? I don't know. I have no idea. They still have Yoo-Hoo, and they still have KO, I think. KO is what we had in the Chicago area. We used to always get KO. And Yoo-Hoo was something that we would run across every once in a while. And funny enough, the KO seemed to be more chocolatey than the Yoo-Hoo. But I think KO's long gone. Man says, looks like you could still get the drink on Amazon. It's owned by Pepsi, but it looks to be in South America. Michael Burrell says they want to try some Wilkins coffee. Sadly enough, I think Wilkins coffee went under in the 1980s, 1990s. It wasn't, well, I mean, 1990s is a long time ago, but kind of not like some of this stuff where it's like, oh, we see this, and that was gone in like 1965. Kid says, you got to put in some Yogi Berra Yoo-Hoo ads in my breaks. I will try to track them down. We still got a month left, a little less than a month left to the baseball season. So yes, I will do that. Very cool. Very cool. We will get to the topic in just a moment. Also wanted to let you know that we are doing Spooky September. Stay tuned this weekend. There will be some videos for various different role-playing titles that will fit into that theme. So stay tuned. And yes, October is going to be old school October. So I'm going to do a bit of a focus on old school Renaissance-ish titles. So we have that as well. So there's a lot cooking. We got a lot going on. Plus, don't forget, this month is also Troll Lord Games Month here at the Gaming Gang. So you'll see more of that as well. So a lot of stuff going on. Coco B says the 90s was a long time ago. Oh, right. Yeah, I know. I thought this, yeah, the 90s weren't that, oh shit. They're like 30 years ago. Yeah, that's all right, so the NFL season is kicking off tonight. So I thought we would chat a little bit about American football games. So I happen to refer to European football as soccer like most Americans do. So if I say football, keep in mind I'm talking about American football. Because I know that we have quite a few people who watch from outside the United States. So if I'm saying football, they're thinking, wait a second, it's not a football game. What is Jeff talking about? Danny Gable says, last week was a long time ago. Yeah, for some people it was, if they can even remember that far back. So I used to play a lot of sports games, sports board games back in the day. And for a while, Avalon Hill was really the big sports game publisher that we had access to. So I know Stratomatic is big. They're still around, still doing great games. And APBA, or as some people used to refer to it as APBA, I know they're still around. So I know they've been around since I think the 50s or 60s, just like Stratomatic is. So we didn't have really access to that for the most part. I do recall there was a game shop that was at the Harlem and Irving Plaza, which was sort of where some of my friends, it wasn't too far away. Elliott, I think, was the closest to that mall, but it tended to be the mall that a lot of my friends in high school and I would go shopping and hang out. There was an arcade and things like that there. And then if it was Elliott and I hanging out, we usually went to the mall that was right down the street from him, which was the Brickyard, which didn't have, there was no game store. There was no arcade. They did have a couple of bookstores, so it had that going for it. So we used to have far more access to Avalon Hill games. Plus, we also had, friends who their like relatives owned some of the bookshelf games from Avalon Hill that some of those sports games were. So we got to play those. But I do recall Gamers Paradise would carry Stratomatic football and baseball. They didn't carry hockey and they did not carry basketball. I think they did later on. So the football games that we got to play, and I'm going to try to remember their mechanics somewhat too. I know we played Football Strategy, which I think was an Avalon Hill game. Well, I know it was an Avalon Hill game, but I think it came out from Sports Illustrated or something like that originally. And then Avalon Hill picked it up. And that was a pretty abstract sort of football game. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, I don't own any of these games anymore. I wish I did. It'd be kind of cool. And of course, a lot of these games I'm going to talk about are out of print. So keep that in mind. And you might be kind of surprised at my thoughts regarding tracking down like PDFs of the game or games. I don't have an issue with it. I don't. I have no problem whatsoever if somebody has shared stuff from Avalon Hill that is no longer in print and would cost you hundreds of dollars on the secondary market. And Hasbro has absolutely zero interest in publishing. They're just sitting on it. No, I don't have any issue with you, finding the game in PDF and printing it out and stuff like that. No. Anyway, so Football Strategy was pretty abstract. If I remember correctly, the offensive player chose, I take that back. The defensive player chose from like 10 defensive formations. And then the offensive player would choose from, I think it was like 20 offensive cards. They were both cards, both sides, defense and offense. And then you would take the two cards and you would compare them on a chart to tell you what was the result of that play. And I seem to recall that they even had like run heavy, pass heavy, and then like balanced. Now that might have been another game, but for some reason I seem to recall that. And I was not a huge fan of football strategy because it was too abstract. You weren't playing as, teams at all. Well, I mean, you were supposed to be teams, but it wasn't like, oh, well, this is the 1978 Oakland Raiders. The Raiders. No, nothing like that. You weren't even like a college team. It was just football team. You could have been high school teams. It doesn't matter. But that is one I recall. Somebody just mentioned Gridiron. I remember Gridiron. And Gridiron, there was another one. Wasn't it Bull Bound? I'm pretty sure it was called Bull Bound. In fact, I'm using as the thumbnail for tonight's show, I'm using the box art from it. And I think it is called Bull Bound. And if I remember correctly, Gridiron and Bull Bound were very, very similar. In fact, Keith Ulu says in high school, they knew a guy who had a copy of Avalon Hill's Pay Dirt, which I could have swore Pay Dirt was Gridiron. They changed it. They changed the title of it. They changed the name. So there's some discussion about Blood Bowl, which Kabuki Kid says, where's Todd McFarlane? This is his topic. I think Todd's more baseball than football. I know he's a huge baseball fan. Remember, he bought Mark McGwire's home run ball for, I think it was $1 million. So there was Gridiron, there was Bull Bound, there was Pay Dirt. And like I said, I think Gridiron and Pay Dirt were the same game. And eventually the title changed. But with those, you actually were playing as real teams. So with, say, I want to say Pay Dirt and Gridiron were both NFL, and then Bull Bound was college teams. So what Bull Bound did is they had like great college teams of history. Now remember, this is like the 1980s, the last time any of these games came out. Some of them had been around for a while. And like, for an example, Status Pro Baseball and Status Pro Football, I swear, originally carried Sports Illustrated, like trade dress on the boxes. I could swear I remember that. So with Gridiron, Pay Dirt, Bull Bound, you had a sheet that broke down your team. And you had, and it was essentially, once again, you were comparing the offense to defense, but you didn't have actual like individual players, which is how most of the like simulation games, which is what I was always into. I was always like the simulation. And if a game did not provide for a realistic outcome, it was like, no, don't like it. No, don't like it. Like if I were playing a baseball game and every game we played was like 15-14, I'd be like, nope, 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 especially in the 1980s. Chris Burkhardt says, wow, Pay Dirt. I remember seeing that on the shelf at the local hobby store ages ago. Some discussion of the Canadian Football League was going on. Kabuki Kid says only football game they really played was electronic football. I have one of those. For my birthday, Elliot bought me one. It's in the package. I was like, I don't even know what he was thinking. But I was like, oh, okay. All right. And it wasn't like from back in the day. It was new. I was like, oh, okay. All right. Like, okay. I had one as a kid and I wasn't even all that thrilled with it. But the little LED game, yes, the handheld one. So anyway, so we had those, and they were similar in play styles. So it was one of these, okay, you pick the play offense compared to the defense, and you're going to kind of cross-reference it, and it would tell you what you got, right? And then usually if it was a long play, you would roll dice. But if it was just a kind of a standard gain, like a 3-yard run or something like that, it was just 3 yards, 3 yards. So Ian Nicholson is with us, says they still have their old copy of Football Strategy. They did have pass and run heavy offense. Being English, I could never get my friends to play this strange American pastime. Although you do get those London games now every year. That must be pretty interesting, I would think, to go to I almost said football game, to go to a NFL game in London must be pretty wild. Must be pretty interesting. So, Jose Fernandez has popped on in to chat. Good to see you. So the games that I gravitated towards were more the individual players. So Avalon Hill had their Status Pro line, and I remember the Status Pro line, you had individual players. I'm trying to remember if you had all of the defensive players, because usually they didn't with the simulation board games. You would have the offensive players. So normally you would have like a Joe Montana card and a Jerry Rice card and, Roger Craig card and, Walter Payton card. But as far as defenses, a lot of times they were relatively abstract. But I seem to recall Status Pro had a lot of individual defensive players. And the thing with the Status Pro lineup of games, and it didn't matter if you were playing baseball or football or basketball or the boxing game that they had, Title Bout, which was excellent. If you were into boxing, and you could set up boxing matches between various different boxers through history. It was actually pretty cool. There was even a little bit of a campaign game to that, if I remember correctly. But they utilized what they called fast action cards. And they were cards about yay big. They were smaller than an index card, but they were far bigger than, say, a playing card. And they were dual-sided. And on each side, they would have various different categories with numbers and things like that. And you would utilize those for the resolution of a play. So you would usually have to flip more than one card to get the resolution of a play. So as an example, like with baseball, you would flip to see, okay, is it going to be on the pitcher's card or it's on the hitter's card? And then you would flip to see, okay, flip it again. You look at a different area that had different range of numbers. And now you're looking at that player's card to see what they did. If it was an out, you flipped it again, and then it would tell you what the out was. And it was kind of funny because the fast action cards were cool in one respect, but then they weren't truly random because you had a deck of 64, I think it was 64 fast action cards. So you only had so many of the numbers, right? So you would have, say for baseball, to see if it was on the pitcher's card, you looked at, I think it was, they call it, if I remember right, if I'm right on this, I'm just gonna, my mind will be blown because it has been, oh my gosh, 40 years, maybe 38 years since I busted out a Status Pro baseball game, but I could swear it was called the PB number. And the better the pitcher, the bigger the range was for their PB. So it went 2 to 12. And like really bad pitchers were like 2 to 5s. So if the PB number came 2 to 5, the next number you flipped and looked at, which I think went from 11 to 66, would be on the pitcher's card. If it was higher, then you looked at the batter's card. And of course, on the pitcher's card, it was a single, a walk, strikeouts, out. On the hitter's card would be the doubles, the triples, the homers, and things like that. Chris Lundgren's with us in chat, says they own baseball by the numbers and bases loaded, but rarely get to play because most of their geek friends are not into sports. You know, it is funny because in high school, I had a lot of friends who liked sports games, but they wouldn't have been caught dead playing a role-playing game. But then most of us, like Elliot and our friend Tim and Scott, who pops in from time to time in chat, and a few others, they would play some of the sports games. Baseball was the one that almost all of us had teams for that we would play. When we started getting into stuff like, hockey, not as much. But the thing is, what we used to always do is we would draft teams like you do with fantasy football or rotisserie baseball and things like that. We would do that all the time. And then we would have our cards. So the thing with the Status Pro line of games was that you didn't really have a random result. So as an example, if you were flipping cards, there were only so many 12 PB numbers in that deck. And if you had gone through all of them, well, then you knew there weren't any left in the deck anymore. So, it was kind of weird. Now, one cool thing about most of the Status Pro releases, I don't remember if they did it for football, but they did it for baseball, was you could actually calculate the player cards for the previous season without actually having to buy them. Now, they sold them, but you could actually calculate them yourselves. That's something that, say, like Stratomatic has never done. I mean, they're like, we aren't going to give you that info. It's like, what are you, crazy? But so, like I said, I don't recall if like every individual defensive player was modeled in Status Pro football. I think if you were like a pass rusher, you were, because I think that was one of the stats. I should take a peek. Because like I said, you can track these out of print games down in PDF. And once again, if you're tuning in a little late, I don't consider that piracy. I consider that an abandoned copyright. And some of these have been out of print for 40 years, almost 40 years. So you've got that. Chris Burkhardt says, didn't they have one for wrestling too? I seem to recall there was an Avalon Hill wrestling game, but I don't know if it fell into their like Status Pro line. Just like Avalon Hill actually produced an edition of RuneQuest. I know a lot of people don't realize that. In fact, strangely enough, I have heard a lot of people feel that's their favorite edition of RuneQuest because it really didn't have the Glorantha part to it. Or if it did, it was kind of watered down, something along those lines. But I do also understand that Avalon Hill was a disaster to work with as far as it went. Glenwood RX says PB is indeed one of the stats on each of the player cards. Zoinks! Mind blown. Because I got to be honest, I haven't thought about any of this in, years and years and years. So those were the Avalon Hill games. And then there was APBA football. I remember my friend Scott Weigel was more of kind of an APBA fan. I think he picked that up and we tried it. I never cared for their baseball. For one, it's just not a very appealing presentation to the game. It's pretty flat. And it was a game that I didn't feel really captured the game, right? It was, I didn't feel that it was, I thought it was a little too abstract in some of the like player results and stuff. But then again, Stratomatic's kind of like that too. So I recall playing APBA football once or twice. Gleeman RX says somebody uploaded images of the game contents to Board Game Geek. Yeah, I would think, I wouldn't be shocked if some of the PDFs are actually floating on Board Game Geek. Crafty Matt is with us in chat. Good to see you. Said their father taught them NFL strategy, which is still my favorite football board game. Sweet. Very nice. If I remember correctly, I think NFL strategy is what eventually became football strategy. I think NFL strategy was from, I know Time Magazine did a football board game. I think it was the 50s-ish. Kabuki Kid says, yeah, when something's abandoned, have no guilt. Kabuki Kid has mentioned before that they really like Baseball Highlights 2045. It's a deck building card game. It's kind of an abstracted mutation of baseball. I wouldn't mind checking that out. It looks kind of fun. Something like that. I'm not sitting there going, well, yeah, this isn't a simulation. I'd be like, yeah. It's like, okay. All right, cool. So the big name in sports simulation games these days, as far as board games go, is Stratomatic. And what was it? The 2016 edition of Stratomatic that I reviewed, which, if I remember correctly, actually, it's the World Series Cubs in it. Trying to remember if if it came out in 2016, which would have had the 2015 team, which went to the playoffs. But for some reason, I think it's the 2016 edition. I haven't taken a peek in quite some time. But with Stratomatic football, you would get all of the offensive players would have cards. So your quarterbacks, your running backs, your wide receivers, your tight ends. And then you would have your kickers were pretty abstracted, but they were still for, those teams, right? So you would still have like the Ray Guys on the Oakland Raiders. You would still have, that person because they were paying the NFL for the licensing for the players' rights, which now it would be the Players Association that you have to pay to use player names, and then you pay the league to use the team names. So yeah, doing games that are like licensed by sport leagues, those licenses are not cheap. But I seem to recall that defensive players were not modeled in detail. But one of the cool things I liked about Stratomatic football was the offense would call their play, then the defense would actually have counters, essentially. They were real thin paper, well, cardstock defenders that they would place in various zones on the board, which represented the field. So if you were blitzing, you actually would have your linebackers up on the line. Now, it didn't necessarily represent that they were really on the line. It just meant that those areas of the field would be empty, making it far easier for plays that were, kind of aimed in that direction to be successful. So I always liked that. And then the defenders were rated 4, 5, and 6 because Stratomatic is a game where, at least with like baseball and football, you are looking at whose card is it going to be on, right? Is it offense? Is it the batter card or pitcher card? Or is it going to be the offensive card or is it the defender? So if you rolled 3 dice, 3 6-sided dice, one was a different color. That was kind of your, what card does this go on? And then you would have results in 3 columns from 2 through 12. Now, I haven't seen Stratomatic football in decades. I would guess, just like Stratomatic baseball, they have added a lot more advanced rules to it and a lot more simulation aspects to it. I'd be curious to take a peek at that. But as far as like the out of print games, if you go on like eBay, maybe even Etsy, if you're looking, say like Status Pro Football, you can go and get Status Pro leagues from not current, but recent seasons that people have actually created the cards for all the players. If you want them physically, they tend to run about $100, $110. In PDF, they're relatively inexpensive, probably $25 for a season. So pretty cool, at least in my opinion. So let's talk a little bit about football games that are out there nowadays that you can play. And I'll be the first to point out, I do not have any personal experience with any of these. Now, there are 2 that we did review here on the Gaming Gang on the website that Elliot reviewed. And the first one is Pizza Box Football. And Pizza Box Football, at least from what I saw, kind of had the feel of like pay dirt, gridiron, where you would have a sheet for that year's team. So like the Chicago Bears, you've got the sheet and you've got things broken down for that. I believe that's how that game was set up. And Elliot reviewed it. He liked it. And I will point out that Elliot is not as big a sports fanatic as I am. So, and Elliot's not as up on like sports strategy as I am. But he enjoyed it. He liked it. And as far as I understand, Pizza Box Football is still available. Now, what seasons they've got, I don't know. I have no idea, because the review that Elliot did is probably from 2012, 2013, somewhere around then. Madman's asking, has anyone played Dead Ball? They have it, but they haven't played it. I have actually seen the PDF, the first PDF for it, and it seemed very interesting. So Dead Ball is a baseball game. In fact, I think it's sold through like drive-through RPG. But what you're doing is you're actually simulating a baseball team from, say, like the early 1900s or late 19th century, the dead ball era of baseball. And of course, they're not real players. But it did seem kind of interesting. And if I remember correctly, I think it used percentile dice. Keithula says, I used to have a fairly simple football game called halftime football. Could you squeeze it in? Could you squeeze a game in during halftime? Is that why they call it halftime football? Crafty Matt says, NFL strategy was Tudor Games. Not familiar with Tudor Games. So Gleamlin RX also points out they've heard of Dead Ball, but they've never seen it played. I saw a video, if I remember correctly, on YouTube, probably about 4 years ago, which piqued my interest. So I picked up the PDF on Drive-Thru RPG for the first of the, like I said, I think there were three. And if I remember correctly, I think it actually even got like a second edition. So it must be kind of popular. And it was actually designed for 2 players, or one of the big selling points for a lot of these like simulation sports games is they tend to have solitaire rules. So they tend to have solitaire rules for that. So let's talk about some football games out there which are available right now. I know someone already mentioned First and Goal, and that is from R&R Games. And that looks kind of interesting because it looks like it's got a bunch of like custom dice. So that looks kind of cool. It does look like it's abstract. You know, it's I believe you have a deck of cards for the offense and the defense, and I think you have a hand of cards, possibly. Once again, I've never played it. I don't know. This was just the impression I got when I took a peek. I think you have a hand of cards from your deck, and then you have to run your plays from that hand of cards. But the cards have 2 plays on it. So now this might be a different game I'm thinking of, but I could have swore it was the First and Goal. And that way, so your card is actually your formation. And then you've got 2 plays that you can run out of that formation. So I thought that looked kind of interesting. But then again, if you've only got a hand of cards, then your hands are tied as far as your play selection. So I don't know about that. Crafty Bat says, are you thinking of Card Football Premier? I've never heard of that. In fact, a lot of the games you're going to mention in chat, and of course, if you're watching after the fact, by all means, share your favorite football, American football, board games in the comments section. I'll tell you right now, I can pretty much guarantee I am not going to be familiar with 99% of them. I've also heard good things about Techno Bowl, not Tecmo Bowl, Techno Bowl, which is supposed to be inspired by arcade football games. And I did see some shots where they have little standees for the players. Thought that was kind of cool. So I would take a guess that you're actually putting them into offensive and defensive formations and can probably create plays. That sounds kind of cool, right? So I know that's out there. I know that's popular. In fact, I saw somebody, remember the electronic football with, you'd have the field just vibrating, and the players all would gather into the corner of the field. I don't know if you still can, but you used to be able to buy the team. Like you could go and be like, oh, I'm a Denver Broncos fan. I want to get the Denver Broncos, the electronic football players, and they had them. I mean, it's be on eBay or something. It wasn't like someone, oh, the Denver Broncos are selling electronic football players. As far as that Techno Bowl, I saw a couple of photographs. Somebody was using those players instead of the standees. I thought that was really cool. I thought that was pretty wild. Crafty Matt said we can always talk about Blood Bowl. Blood Bowl is a cool game. In fact, Elliot bought me the, what the hell is it? Blitz Bowl? Is that, or Blood Blitz? Something like that. For my birthday. I gotta be honest, I don't even think I cracked it open. It's like the beginner box to introduce you to Blood Bowl. I had Blood Bowl when it first came out. And I used to buy a lot of Games Workshop stuff, folks. Seriously. When I talk about I used to have a lot of disposable income, I used to have a lot of disposable income, and I disposed of it. I wish I had all that stuff, but having moved around the country, and even when I'd be in one place, after about 2 years, I get kind of antsy. It's sort of like, I want to move to a new neighborhood, get a new apartment, what have you. So I would move a lot. Danny Gable says Tudor Games already painted $20, I guess, for the electronic football teams. Madman says the electronic football did have a cardboard stadium you could set up around the field. You sure it's available somewhere? Talking about like cardboard stadiums, there was a game, it was a baseball game, Pursue the Pennant. And it was actually a pretty damn good game. And it was similar in some respects to Stratomatic baseball because you had the splits, you had your lefty righty splits. So splits are basically if I'm a right-handed hitter, which I am, how do I hit against left-handed pitchers? How do I hit against right-handed pitchers? Those are the splits. And then for a pitcher, it's the same thing. So a right-handed pitcher, what are their splits against a right-handed batter and a left-handed batter? And it's those kind of things on the player cards that make the game a simulation as opposed to, oh, well, they hit 300 with 20 home runs. Because that's like the basic game for Stratomatic to introduce you to the game. But the thing is, with Pursue the Pennant, and I think it became another game. I think the rights to it got sold to somebody or whatever. It came with the outfield for all the major league teams. So Wrigley Field, because you played with the box top. The box top was the field. So that was the diamond. And then you would take the outfield wall from whatever ballpark you were playing in, and you put that in the like half of that box top. Oh, it was hysterical. It was great. Lemon RX says the YouTube channel named Mark W. and Rob Bob Present has a recent playthrough of Deadball. So he learned how to play Tunnels and Trolls from playthroughs on his channel. Very nice. That sounds cool. Gleeman RX says the Deadball playthrough is 3 hours. So I'm guessing it's a fun game. And I would guess there's probably a couple of games that get played as far as that. If I remember correctly, I think Deadball also had a mode that you could play, and it was sort of like the pennant race. So it was like the last 2 weeks of the season to get to the playoffs. Well, and at that point in time, you wouldn't have a playoff. It would be the top team in one division would play the other division. Of course, if we go way back, you just had a champion at the end of the year with the best record, but still. So I think, if I remember right, I think the game kind of was trying to simulate up to the early 1920s. So before Babe Ruth became a hitter, because if you follow sports, if you know baseball, Babe Ruth was a pitcher. He would have been a Hall of Fame pitcher probably, but he swung a pretty good bat because pitchers hit back in the day. All right. Anyway, so Techno Bowl is another. I have heard Breakaway Football. If you like simulation games, I heard Breakaway Football is pretty good. Although I think it's supposed to be pretty pricey. Just like Techno Bowl looked like that was like $80. But then again, it's got like the standee players and stuff. Crafty Matt says, let's not forget the oldest and cheapest form of tabletop football, folding a piece of paper into a triangle and kicking it through your friend's upright thumbs. Oh, it hits the upright. No good. It's like, man. So there is, with Breakaway Football, that is another game that is a simulation, and you can buy the teams, or I should say the seasons. But I think the seasons in PDF were something like 20, 25 bucks, something like that. And that's not bad. I mean, because, there is a lot of work that actually goes into creating these player cards and stuff. As far as the game itself, I don't know. But I have heard good things about Breakaway Football. So we've got that. Elliot did a review for a card game called Jukum Football, which I remember him telling me about, and he did the review for it. I never saw it. And I remember him telling me about, he played it with his son, and I think he played it like during halftime of a Bears game. And I told him, I said, I guarantee if I had played it, I would not have liked it as much as you did. So I can't tell you as far as, how good it is. I think it is still around. I think Jukum Football is still around. I think it's sold probably like exclusively through Amazon, something like that. So we'll take a couple of moments here. If anybody watching in chat wants to share any of their favorite tabletop football games, football board games, I think all in all, my favorite is Stratomatic Football. But I would be curious to try to take a look at Status Pro Football, because I don't remember it that well. But I am kind of curious about it. I remember when we used to play Status Pro Baseball, we did try doing things like rolling a 12-sided die for the PB number that was the 2 to 12, and we would just ignore a 1. And we rolled 2 6-sided dice, and we would have 2 different colors. So we would get 11 to 66. And then, weirdly enough, the games we tried playing with that, I just seemed like they were really high scoring. So So maybe that fast action deck, it's a little better than the dice. I don't know. I just remember coming out on the short end of the fast action deck more often than being like, yeah, sweet, that's on my card. Blue and RX says, Jukem Football, 2nd edition, 2015. Yeah, I know Elliot reviewed the first edition of it. So, all right. Nobody's thrown out any football games out there. Well, I mean, we've covered quite a few. And of course, I mean, there's tons and tons of football card games and things like that. This time of year, we tend to see a lot of kind of crappy football games come out. It's sort of like, Crafty Matt says, yeah, they're going to stick with NFL strategy. It was complex. I like the spring-loaded pinball random ticker. That was one thing that was always kind of cool, too, with the simulation football games was you were always tracking the time of the play. So that was always kind of cool. So, yeah, a completed pass, run play, was 30 seconds. Incomplete pass, it was like 15 seconds. So it's kind of cool. Gleeman RX says they played front-page sports football in the 90s on the computer. I played the hell out of that game. I remember I had the Bears because I would play the Bears all the time. And there was a busted play that would either end up with a Neil Anderson, who was the running back after Walter Payton retired. In fact, he was around when Payton was still around. If you threw a screen pass to him, that he would either go all the way or get tackled for a loss. There was no in between. And there were quite a few 90-plus yard screen passes to Neil Anderson in that game. So, Gleeman RX says it doesn't count as a board game. I know. I mean, just like if Madden had more like management aspects to it, where if you would be like the coach just calling plays, I would get into that. But it doesn't. I think there's really more emphasis on the team building aspect of Madden, and it's been a while since I played a Madden. But it seems like there's more attention devoted to the team building and the drafting and the general manager portion of it, which is also cool. But you would also end up with kind of, you don't have like the simulation aspect of being the coach, just calling plays, sitting back and seeing what happens. And I understand why. I mean, it's tough enough to simulate what's going on with the AI, not have both teams doing it. I get it. I understand. Man says, sounds like Barry Sanders in real life. Barry was a hell of a running back. Funny enough, the Bears usually did all right. Well, I was going to say containing him, but okay, you couldn't contain Barry Sanders. But Barry Sanders didn't tend to really kill the Bears. Killed a lot of other teams. For some reason, he'd rush for like 140 yards, but not get into the end zone against the Bears, I seem to recall. All right, so that is it for this time out. The NFL season has kicked off. Very cool. So Crafty Matt says College Football 25 has a coach mode. Recall plays, just audibles, recruit from high schools, let the AI play the actual games while you manage the clock, timeouts. Well, there are a lot of computer football games that are out there for simulations. I'm talking about, I wish there was something that had the graphics of Madden that you could be like, yeah, this is sweet. The Sims that are out there are pretty good as far, and there are a few, especially if you're looking at Sims that don't utilize NFL licenses or player association licenses, but they don't have those graphics. That's why I'm saying it would be really cool if we had that. All right. Anyway. So if you're watching live, thank you very much. If you watched live, took part in chat, a bigger thank you. But of course, I know a lot of you out there, you didn't have an opportunity to watch live. Doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. Really do appreciate you taking time out to watch any of the videos here on the Gaming Gang channel. Yay. As I mentioned, I have got some spooky September stuff coming this weekend. You will probably see another 4, maybe 5 videos pop up on the channel prior to me doing the next show. So I got lots in the hopper for us to jump on into. If you like this video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't, and if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell. It will not only let you know when the Dispatch streams live Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings at 7 p.m. Central right here on YouTube. It'll also let you know when I share other videos, such as my upcoming review of Journal du Indochina from the Sons of the Singularity. And it is for Call of Cthulhu. And yes, it is part of our spooky September. So stay tuned. This is a very unique adventure collection, and I will talk about those adventures. I'll try to stay spoiler-free, obviously enough, but there will be a little bit of spoilers. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit gaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Everybody, enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time of day it is in your neck of the woods. If you are an American football fan, enjoy opening weekend. Go Bears. Bears are going to be interesting. They're going to be interesting. I think they'll be okay. I think they might end up with a winning record, but you never know. They are the Bears. I said, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. And until I see you next time, I certainly hope all of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.